most of the skills you have in a professional sport are not transferable. The main skills that you get are the hard work, the discipline, the consistent action. That's extremely valuable, but what other tangible skills do you have around?
Welcome back to the List Building Lifestyle. I'm your host, Igor Kheifets, and today I'm hosting an ex-NFL player turned into a real estate investing superstar, Dean Rogers. Dean, welcome to the List Building Lifestyle.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. And you've got a pretty cool story, definitely unique. You wouldn't be the first professional athlete who made the transition from sports to starting their own business, for sure. I had the pleasure of chatting with somebody who used to be in the WNBA as well as in the female European basketball leagues, who basically told me something on the lines of, look, sports is my passion. It's amazing, but there's only so far I can take this. And turns out most professional athletes end up broke because even if they do make good money during their careers, once they're done, they really can't sustain their cost of living, and they can't really find sources of income. So oftentimes it ends up pretty tragically for them.
100% spot on everything you said there. It's the passion, and once you leave the sport, because with sports, no matter how good you are, even LeBron James having an almost 20-year career, which is unheard of, and still, playing at an extremely high level, that comes to an end. And he's going to be a middle-aged man at that point. Like, he's lived half of his life, only half. And now what?
But what a life.
I think why, but what a life.
What a life.
What a life. I don't think he would take anything back. But for most athletes, careers are much shorter. You get to that level, you have the status, you have the fame, you get to make the money. You work so hard to get there, and you're in this crazy dream life that is only stuff that you see in the movies is actually reality. It's pretty nuts, and we can dive more into it. But all of a sudden, that's gone. All of a sudden, it's gone. And your identity is still there. And now what? Now you have to find this new identity. You have to find this new vehicle that's going to continue to support your lifestyle, like you said. And that's where most of them go wrong, is because they don't know how to make that transition and get lost in trying to figure out who they even are. Who are they at this point? And that's really hard. It's really hard mentally and emotionally, and then trying to learn new skills. I mean, most of the skills you have in a professional sport are not transferable. The main skills that you get are the hard work, the discipline, the consistent action. That's extremely valuable, but what other tangible skills do you have around, sales, around, understanding finances, and like there's so many different aspects to business, right? And so most of those aren't taught. You might have some leadership that comes with you, naturally leading people and inspiring people on your team. But yeah, man, it's a doozy. It's hard for most people, and most people fail, come out and crash and burn.
Yeah, I was chatting with Bob Diamond, and he shared with me a book that he really liked. He's got young children, me too, and he said that I should read Raising an Entrepreneur. And they devote, so it's basically a series of interviews with parents of entrepreneurs and with people who became great entrepreneurs, both of publicly traded companies as well as private companies. And they devote a lot of time to sports. They talk about how investing, kind of throwing themselves into sports in their younger years contributes to ability to deal with setbacks, with perseverance, with really honing in on a skill if you need to, which is how you get good at anything is really, it's the 10,000 hour rule, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would assume in some way your career in sports did, contribute to developing at least a sort of personality or sort of habits that carried you through in that transition.
I love it you said that, because I think that that is without question what prepared me to become an entrepreneur. And it's, that environment in sports, it teaches you so many life lessons about how to deal with adversity, how to deal with situations where you're under pressure, how to push through when things are hard and tough, how to receive criticism, how to work with other people. Man, there's just so much about that. And I can attribute, you know, so many of the failures that I had throughout my real estate investing journey and career. Um, I had times where I had major setbacks and failures, and those decisions all came back down to me. There might have been outside, factors, people doing things, ripping you off, scamming you, doing wrong by you. But at the end of the day, you decided to make the decision to be in that deal. But yeah, I think I had many nights in my real estate career now where I had to look myself in the mirror and it's like, yo, this is hard, but you got to push through because there's no other way, you know? And there's no doubt that it goes back to my growing up in sports and getting to the level that I got to, experiencing that over and over again. I mean, there's a lot of situations where, you're on the field, you can't even hear what's going on because the crowd is so loud, and you have to get focused and um and stay go back to your training, to be able to execute. And yeah, so I love relating the sports to what that looks like in real life, because I'm doing the same thing with my kids right now. I've got young kids. I got 4 kids, and I'll take them out on the weekends and put them through training, and I'll put them in the pressure cooker. I'll be out there for a couple hours with them, and they'll have moments where, they're kind of breaking down. They're starting to doubt themselves. Maybe they'll use certain words where I can't do it. Right. And those are great life lessons, learning moments to really put those words into them and let them know that they can do it. They can push through. They can be strong. They have to believe in themselves. And I love that so much.
Yeah, my son turned 4 this year, and we started football. But I mean, it's called soccer over here. But I
Yeah.
was born in Ukraine and then raised in Israel, so we call it football over there. And so we started training, and the other day, I want to do the same thing. I took him out. I grabbed some cones so he could dribble in between them, and at some point, he just refused.
Yep.
He just said, "You brought these cones and they ruined my mood. I don't want to do this anymore." And he just walked away. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, I understand putting him under pressure and telling him to push through, etc. But like, what if he just walks away from the damn field? Like, how do you make him go back?
Yeah, that's funny. There's a fine balance, because you definitely don't want to make, force your kids to do it. So there is that fine balance. You got to make sure that they're interested. You don't want to make them do sports and force them into it. But that goes back to just kind of like finding what motivates them, finding what gets them excited. A lot of the times, with sports at least, um, and naturally, I want my kids to play sports because it makes me feel alive. Even when I take them out to go train them, or I go watch them, practice or playing the games. And I've been coaching them in soccer and basketball, and that makes me more involved. You gotta find what motivates them, and there'll be days where they're not really into it, and you got to kind of back off a little bit. And then usually their self motivation comes from having confidence, right? And usually they don't want to listen to dad as much as they will someone else. So like my son, I kept trying to get him to play basketball, and he would only want to every so often play if there was some other kid playing at the park. And then finally we put him in a camp where they take you through the basic skills. And the very first camp I took him to, at the very first water break, he runs over and he goes, "I love it." And I was like, I knew you would. See, we told you. And then he's just been super into it since. So sometimes you just got to get someone else to coach them, and then they'll fall in love with it.
Yeah, I'm starting to have a sense because my daughter, she's 10, and she doesn't take crap from me either. It's like I have zero authority beyond the
Right.
basic parenting requirements. Like as soon as we step into a different domain, it's like I have no credibility whatsoever.
It's hilarious. It's just part of being a parent, and I have the conversations with other parents too, and everyone's experiencing the same thing. So it's
pretty
tough,
nuts. But it's sort
yeah.
of like they'll go through this, I think, this sort of journey where you start out and your parent is your idol. Then you start realizing your parent doesn't really know all that much. So the credibility winds down. But then as they grow older, they learn once again that your father might know a thing or two. Like that's what I went through. I went through from idolizing him to sort of, being disappointed in, learning about his flaws, to really hating him, to then sort of continuously hating him until a while. Then having my own kids, I started sort of like calling him up and asking him questions and saying things like, "Oh, I get it now. When you said that, and the other, I get it now." And so, but now, like the older I get, the more I trust his point of view and perspective.
Yeah, that's a cycle. That's what everybody goes through.